This is the Aftermarket Radio Network. We're here to talk about pre-scheduling appointments, and the time has come. And I know one thing for sure. My friend Greg Skolnik, who's here, he's gonna hit you hard on this topic. And Bill Thompson is going to bring some stats to play. And Craig Noel is going to say, hey, I'm doing it. So get on board. All right. Well, I want to thank my sponsors who have really stepped up and made the Town Hall Academy free and available for you all the time. Do you know what's as easy as 1, 2, 3? Well, Shop Marketing's shop management system allows customers to review, approve, and pay for repairs all in one place. Keep your staff and your customers safe while maintaining profits and keeping your customers happy. Learn more at getshopware.com. And guys, does your social media truly represent your shop, or is it just plain vanilla generic posts? Well, it doesn't have to be that way. The experts at Shop Marketing Pros listen and create social content that connects you to your community on the web at shopmarketingpros.com. With me today is Bill Thompson, president of IMR Inc. and automotiveresearch.com. Bill, maybe your second or third time on the show. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Greg Skolnik, Motorworks, Rockville, Maryland, the man who has the 4-day work week and has been pre-scheduling for years.
Wow. Yes, we have.
Wow.
I've been preaching this for a while, and I don't know why some of you guys out there are not listening. But today you're going to listen.
Thank you. Because before we went live, I said to my team, we've got to get mean.
Yeah, right. That's me mean. That's me being mean.
That's you being mean. Because we really need to, the proof of concept for, doing a lot of things right over the years. I think in 2021, we've got to have a brand new slate of must-dos. And for me, this is one of them. Also with us is Craig Noel from Sun Automotive, Springfield, Oregon. And congratulations on your 4th store.
Thank you very much.
Wow. I know how much work that's got to be. I just can't imagine. Just can't imagine. And we were able to be so lucky to get Craig here. But the reason Craig is here is because he just started to do pre-scheduling. And so we want to hear how he rationalized it and what he's doing about it. And of course, Greg being the stalwart, I think, of our industry in doing this. So look at, Bill is the data guy, and we have data to prove why pre-scheduling is important. But before we get to that, Bill brought us some excellent, if you will, additional information to help us all understand, hey, listen, guys, everything that you've done to be safe in COVID, it matters. It matters to the industry. So, Bill, I want you to walk through these first few slides.
Sure. So just as a quick background where this data is coming from, back in July, we had an idea that we should be talking to households every week to kind of gauge sentiment and attitudes, channel share, and things about what their behaviors are during this pandemic period, because there were a lot of questions. And the one thing that you're going to note is we started in July. The very last number on it says week 24, but the reality is it's really week 26. The very last data point on every one of these slides is going to be from a week ago. So it's really current data, and the more things stay the same, the more they stay the same. So one of the things that we started to look at was people's fear, right? Because we wanted to gauge fear and behavior and understanding what people were actually fearful of. We have a series of attributes that we track, but this was one that hasn't changed kind of in a lick at all for all these weeks, which is, how worried are you about being exposed to COVID at a repair shop, right? And we're not quite at a third, but getting close to 29% of respondents week over week over week of 1,000 vehicle maintainers week over week over week are basically saying, yeah, a third of them say I'm kind of worried about going to a repair shop. right? And so that's one data point to keep in mind. And so as all of the folks that are on the line know, all of these mechanisms have been put in place to abate that fear, right? Because it's real. And so, I know independent shops and dealerships are one aspect of the marketplace, but it's a real thing. And it hasn't declined either, right? So that's point number one.
Next slide, which is research reviews for vehicle repair shops.
Yeah. So again, something we had never tracked before. I think people kind of knew that research and reviews was kind of something that was important, but we're getting nearly half of the vehicle maintainers, right? If their vehicle needed maintenance today, they would actually look up a review for a repair shop, right? And so right, to think that it doesn't come into play, and compounding with the fact that we're in this COVID period where people are fearful, then they're probably looking for some very specific things when they're looking at reviews or looking at, whether or not they should come to your shop, right?
Got it. Next, touchless customer service. The thing I love about what's going on with this information, Bill, is should we back down? Should we keep doing what we're doing? And the data helps us understand that.
Right. And this is a very interesting one. Again, it hasn't abated. It's been very consistent that the consumers are saying, yes, I want a touchless customer experience. In another research piece that we did, we talked to 25,000 households about now, what do they expect now, which is exactly what this is showing, versus what do they expect when things abate in their area, when things change or kind of go back to normal. What are they really looking for? They're still looking for this touchless, but you know what they're really looking, the whole mask thing, out. That's like 4th, 5th, 6th down the road. What they really want to know is that their car's been disinfected and their keys have been disinfected. Some very basic blocking and tackling, and that will make them feel comfortable. So the dynamics are going to change as we ease into maybe the summer-ish in terms of what their expectations are, and people's fear levels kind of decrease. Their behaviors kind of follow that same notion, right?
And I love this next slide. We've talked about it before, financing.
Yeah. And this is I'll give Carm all due credit for this question, because right as we launched it, he said, you should really ask about these couple things. Well, this was one of them. And lo and behold, a good 40%. I just got a flyer or something, a reminder that I need my vehicle serviced. And it actually mentioned financing for service, which I thought was fascinating. That the person we go to had already kind of thought about doing this, but it's an option, especially when we're talking costly repairs, right? So it's something that people will absolutely consider if it's if it's appropriate for your shop to offer it up, great. But it's certainly something that people are thinking about.
Hey guys, without going too deep into this thing and doing a whole show on financing, Greg, do you offer financing to customers that inside of the pitch?
Probably shouldn't be saying this on there, but no, we generally don't. I kind of look at it, and I've always looked at it like, well, Visa, MasterCard, and Discover and all those companies are the bank. And if the people are maxed out on all of those, they probably shouldn't be doing this work on their car anyway. But that's been my opinion. But to go beyond that, I will say we have an extraordinary book of clients that we've built for years and years. And if something is coming up with a client and they're having some difficulty with a particular thing, we will take 3 payments or something, or post-aid check or whatever, hold a payment, or we'll do a special arrangement to charge your card once a month for 3 months or something like that. So we do have something, and it's interest free, but it is on a case by case basis.
Thanks, Greg. Craig, are you offering financing?
We do offer it, 2 different types, Car Care One, and we also have local, what's called a company called Greenleaf. And so they've been instrumental in helping out those that, Greg alluded to, that are really financially challenged. I think that, my initial upfront thought about it is just what Greg kind of reacted to. But what I have found that there are people who are challenged based upon uncontrollable life events. And so I think that the option to be able to help them through some of these things, and I'm with Greg, by the way, there are many times where I've helped a customer out who's been really, really good and very trustworthy internally as well. So, but we do offer it. Long and the short is we don't tend to end up using it very much, interestingly enough, but it is there, and we have had to use it at times, and it's been helpful.
And the,
Yeah,
co-
and I
and the
wouldn't,
consumers, yeah, and the consumers say, sure, offer it to me.
Yep.
And I wouldn't necessarily read this as traditional bank financing. The way that I would interpret this is an option of something to finance, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like Greg had mentioned. That's how I would interpret this.
Well, I'm going to revisit it at 40, over 40% of the respondents say yes. I'm thinking, well,
Right.
maybe it's a lower percentage of my particular clients, but still,
Right.
I mean,
Got
if
it.
it's available and it doesn't
All
really
right.
cost us much, I think we might look into it.
Well, thanks for taking that little side thing for us. Now, this.
Yeah.
Look
at how flat
Yeah,
that
baby.
is.
This is what we're here to talk about, guys.
Isn't that crazy? Again, another, I got to give Carm credit where credit's due. I like to think we're smart over here sometimes, but this was a great ad. Look at how ridiculously consistent that is. So,
Told you.
Exactly. And we touched on this in the last, one of our last podcasts with Carm, and it was early on. And I'll tell you what, when you're hitting likely, extremely likely that they're going to schedule, and the analogy's been, well, you make an appointment to see your dentist or your doctor. What's the difference with your car? This really kind of sets the stage for people's willingness to actually get things on the calendar. I would almost submit to you that there's no research behind this, but people that when they are really busy, knowing it's on their calendar actually is helpful, as opposed to going in blind and being like, oh gosh, I got to schedule it. How do you think things get delayed? Right?
Yep.
It's by not having something on the calendar.
Yep.
Got it. So,
I'm trying to tell you.
well, I know you have. And
time out, guys. We
welcome,
have to.
Greg.
We got to give Greg his props. So he is the master at this, and he needs full recognition now. Let's get it off the table.
Yeah.
Wow.
So Greg, knowing that you own this, and Greg and I actually had a conversation before we got on today, this morning, about how we can actually try to make this a constitution inside of our industry and move. And it all started. It didn't all start, but to prove what we were doing this Friday, I think it was Tuesday, I'm in my car driving, and an ad for a dentist came on. And one of the words they used was hygiene. And that really resonated with me. And I said, oh my God, we've got the show coming up Friday. How can I bring my feel to the show and to the automotive aftermarket, to the owners and the service advisors that are out there? And why aren't we? I got a haircut last week. They said, you're going to schedule, right? What do you think I thought of? My hair grows. I guess I need to come back, right? I eat, I chew. My teeth need to be, we hear more and more about teeth and heart. You know what I'm saying? Right. So if we don't know, if we're not smart enough to explain to the customer, listen, I see how many miles you drive. You need to be in here in May. Let me set you up for May 19th. Just drop it off in the morning. We'll take care of all the important maintenance service. And the customer says no. And I says, Mrs. Smith, you go to the dentist, you go to the hair salon. I mean, why aren't we pushing this harder, or why can't we sell around that, Greg?
That's the $50,000 question right there. It has amazed me over the years, and I have talked to groups before about this process that we've been doing. And what I continually hear back is, well, my clients won't do that. I just get too much pushback. And, I understand that. If you oversell it, or if you push them really hard, like you're trying to make a sale on something, I think that's where you're going to run into a big problem there. I think if you can couch it in a way that says, look, you are worth it to us as a client, and we need to make sure, because we're very efficient here, we need to make sure that we have the proper amount of time and the right guy in the place for you when you get here to take care of your car. So in order to do that, all I want to do, and here's the magic words, folks, listen up, and it's pencil in an appointment for you. I'm just going to pencil it in for a particular day. You like Mondays? Great. We'll put it in for a Monday. And you know what? A week before that, we're going to contact you. And we're going to make sure that date's okay for you, because guess what? I don't know what I'm going to be doing 4 or 6 months from now? I have no idea. Same thing. You go to the dentist. They say, well, would you like to have your appointment? I'm like, I don't know. Tuesday's fine, And so, okay, they just drop a number on there, and as you get closer to it, they confirm it. And yes, it's good, or no, it's not good. And if it's not good, you still move it to whatever day it works for you, and then you just go from there. But so I look at it like this: like there's always been, I mean, for years and years and years, I've seen this connection between the dental industry and the automotive industry. And the bottom line is this: nobody really wants to go to the dentist. Nobody really wants to go to get their car serviced and spend money on it, but they know they need to do it because they know that by not doing it, bad things will happen, right? So it's our job to try to make it least inconvenient for them, okay? And the goal here is to get it to a point where they trust you, which takes time to build, okay? Where they trust you to just take care of their stuff for it. You're the guy. You're the one that they're going to contact. Well, basically, you're contacting them to tell them that this is what's going to be due on this date and whatever. And they just go, oh, that's right. You told me it was going to need that. And we go and do it. So it's been amazing how well this has worked for us over the years. I started this, well, I first came up with the concept of it in 2003. And I think it was after a dentist appointment. I think I was talking to my dentist about it. And I was like, why, this is stupid. We should be doing this. And so I think the very first incentive that we gave out for our clients, because we started this program with a series of incentives, the very first incentive was like in middle of 2004. And interestingly enough, I did a little bit of research prior to going to the show. And the third and fourth quarters of that year of 2004, turns out that 31% of our appointments ended up being pre-scheduled by the end, which isn't necessarily bad for first rollout. And every year after that, it got better and better and more and more. And then, interestingly enough, as all things happen, if you take your eye off the ball, this is what happens. I started to see, and I didn't realize this until after this is already happening, that my front office staff, who are responsible for doing this, kind of fell off the wagon there, and they stopped pushing it. And by the time I got to the point where, and it wasn't for this particular reason that I had to replace these people, but once it got to the point where I had, in the year that I had to replace them, they were down to 8%. 8%. Now we had started at 31%. And since that time, we have steadily grown up. In the last 5 or 6 years now, it's been a very steady 60%. 6 out of 10 cars that we see are scheduled 4 to 6 months ago. Now, what that does for us, well, you guys automatically know, it takes a lot of these peaks and valleys out of this process. And I'm not going to say that we don't have our share of issues, especially with COVID, and especially we're in the Washington, D.C. area. And right now, what's happening in Washington, D.C.? Okay, so there's a lot of craziness happening over here. So without getting into that, I can tell you that it's throwing people off their game and out of their schedules. Between the COVID and what's happening downtown, it's just really bad. Okay, so hopefully this will get a little bit easier as time goes on. But I do want to mention the part about why we do it. You have to think of it like this. We're all creatures of habit, right? All of us. And when we know what's coming, we're automatically less stressed. And when we feel much more in control, we love it. We love to feel like we're in control of what's happening here. And so we know what to expect, right? So what we're trying to do here is to just move that same process and that same idea into the client's mind. We're trying to get that to the client's understanding so that they know that we're the ones that have our stuff together, and we're going to be the ones that are going to take care of their car. We don't have to go through this routine of trying to send out a fishing pole with a big lure on the end of it, says, I'm going to give you this free blah, 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 if you come in, and then yank on the thing to try to get them in the door, which is what a huge percentage of these shops are doing, especially the aftermarket shops, meaning like mass merchandisers and all that. They're doing people still doing $9.95 oil changes out there. I don't get it. But my point is that what that does is that brings in the wrong kind of clients. If you think about what it costs you to get a new client in and get them to trust you or make that sale, as opposed to what it costs you to build that relationship with your long-term client, where they end up just handing you the keys and telling you whatever needs to be done. You can see that it's way better for you to slow down so that you can speed up. We talk about coaching.
So can I chime in, Mr. Skolnik?
Absolutely.
He is one of my dearest friends and colleagues for sure. And I went back to visit his shop, and I'd like to paint a picture for those out listening. His shop is not, I repeat, not on a main drive-through. He is on a little tiny back road of an industrial area.
Right.
So when I come in to look at his schedule as we do a host shop review, I think it was like 4 years ago or so. Everybody out there, listen to this. So when I go in and I see on his schedule 6 months ahead, 6 to 8 appointments on that schedule.
Every day.
That in and of itself will actually wake you up to some evening out of those peaks and valleys that he's talking about. So I want to paint a picture for you, Greg, because it's rather impressive, even from a business standpoint, to be able to not condition them, but get them used to what's important. So I just wanted to chime that in and paint a picture for them. Sorry about that.
And I have a question for you, Greg. What happens when somebody says no? What do you do? Do you just accept it as it is, or do you
there are some
bad word, right?
I mean,
not sales, but
well, this is interesting because let me just tell you a quick story. I'm a coach also, okay, and I work for Elite Worldwide, and at one point I visited a client's shop in California, and he, while I was there talking to him, just spending time with him, a client, one of his customers drove up and came in, and they were talking about this and that, and he's like, and he said to him, said, Mr. So-and-so, you probably ought to have blah, blah, blah done. And the guy goes, I'm not going to do anything like that. And my client just took it. And I said, wait a second, hold on a second. Why would you want to let your car do that like this? I wasn't a big sales guy, but I'm like, and the guy went, what? And I'm like, well, it doesn't make sense for you to be penny wise and pound foolish here, does it? And the guy goes, you're right. So it's like all of a sudden he made the appointment with the guy, right? And I'm like, it's kind of one of those things where you have to find a balance. You don't want to be pounding on these people like you have to do this, but you have to say, this makes sense. This makes sense for you to do it this way. And again, the whole idea of penciling it in is a quasi commitment. It's not in ink. Okay, it's not cast in stone. So if they got if you incentivize it in some way, I think it's important. Yes, pencil in, Sarah. Absolutely, right. So the point I guess I'm trying to make here is that you do have to read your customers, obviously, and we do have people that just say, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to keep the car, whatever. And we hear that and we go, okay, we're still going to contact you on such and such a time to remind you, but. It's like I said, there's 60%. That means there's another 40% that are not. And some of those are coming in because there's a problem, or some of them are first-time clients that we've not met before for whatever reasons. So there's still stuff to work on in there, right? But it's interesting that we do have to step up and just explain to them why this is important. You go to a dentist and the dentist says, let's make another appointment. You go, nah. Well, they're going to go, okay, wait for the pain in your jaw.
I think there's a point where you cannot accept no and let it look like a hard sale. I think, listen, Mrs. Smith, you're so reliable on your vehicle, and you bring it here. You know why you bring it here? Because we know we can get this thing to last, hundreds of thousands of miles for you. You take care of it, and scheduling ahead is peace of mind for you. I mean, we need as an industry not to feel like we're overselling and we're pounding on people, but just to have a conversation on safety and reliability. Right. And Greg, I somehow in my mind, I think once someone would come back to me and says, yeah, you're right, let's do it. Hey, let's stop for a moment. And hey, anybody who's with us on social media, we appreciate you being there. There are some comments that I do want to cover a little later in the show, but give us a like, check in with your city. I sure appreciate that. Contactless service is key, as we've seen in the surveys today, to keeping your bays full while remaining 6 feet apart. Shopware's completely digital workflow will wow your customers and keep your profits up. Tara from Topels said, thank God for this amazing cloud-based software during this difficult time. Thank you, Carolyn and hashtag Team Shopware. Book a demo today at getshopware.com. And to my friends at Shop Marketing Pros, is your marketing company sharing the same vanilla social media posts for you that they do for every other shop? Well, that's not how Shop Marketing Pros does business. They believe each shop is unique with their own story. Contact them today on the web at shopmarketingpros.com. I would like to know, Craig, from you, when you decided, hey, in January 1st, we're going to start doing this, did Greg finally beat the heck out of you and convince you to do this?
Well, look,
He's
Greg,
a little bit larger than I am. I don't know.
Yeah.
You can't see it.
But Greg is really intimidating. He starts pointing that finger. I mean, it's like E.F. Hutton. You start listening.
Yeah.
But look, seriously, this is it's been important to me. Now, look, when I bought the company in 2017, I wanted to do it prior to, and so during that growth up to this point, I just wasn't prepared to pull the trigger. However, I'd like to kind of come up to about 50,000 feet and kind of look at this from the industrial part of it and the consumer part of this, because we've seen and it's good. We've seen a great transition between those shops that really want to be the customer's advocate and help them and truly, support them through our process, meaning the complete repair process, right? And so I think that stigma is finally starting to wash away with the new generations that are coming up, right? The millennials and everybody who's young. And what we've seen, and you can think about it from, oh my gosh, what is the cycling app, where you can get the cycling and
Peloton?
Peloton. You got Peloton. You've got all of these interactions that are all taking both a leadership role and making it convenient, right, for everybody. Right. And you have everything from, the music and Spotify. Things are convenient because we live in a busy world, right? So I think that those two roads are now finally meeting together, right? Where the trust is built in for us being able to take care of them. So when Greg says and talks about trust, I think that's a huge thing. So when we start relating, dentistry to cars, which Greg is 100% correct, there's a lot of coincidental things that match up to what we do versus what they do. And two things that Greg talked about are so key. I can't emphasize this enough because I'm going to project 6 months for you, which are the penciling in part, the flexibility, 100%. He is accurate on that. And the second is they're starting to be able to trust and rely on our help in a scheduled, I don't mean scheduled by our schedule, but a way to control and help them maintain their life. So these two things I think are going to be really key, especially right now, because what's going to happen in 6 months? Well, I feel that you're going to see this big transition between, the rhetoric's obviously going to start going down here in the next 30 to 60 days. You've got vaccines coming out and people are going to get back to normal. And that normal is going to be different, but we still are going to be their advocate. And I think that there will be a big, huge wave to be able to capitalize on, because in 6 months, people are going to be, they're going to be not necessarily thinking about their car. They're going to be thinking about Hawaii and Vegas and having some fun. So those reminders that we're setting in place right now will help us in the long run as well.
Right. So Craig, just a quick comment. One of the things that you mentioned was about the consumer. In a different study that we do, 60, I would say between I've been to the shop before and I trust them. That's a good, for the number one reason why they show up at a general or independent repair shop. Those are the top two reasons, right? And so so the dynamics of age, the consumer's age is another very interesting aspect of it. And one of the things that we've learned from a whole boatload of research is that who's the first person somebody that's younger that has a first-time experience asks when they need to go have their vehicle repaired? They ask a family member, right? And so if you're ticking off the top two boxes of I've been there before and I trust them, when, Sally or Jimmy come and say, hey, mom or dad, where do I take this vehicle to have it done that I can trust? Guess what they say, right?
That's correct. And I did a study over the last 6 months. My daughter, who's 23, I took 6 of them to dinner again. I've done it 3 times now, and just talked about their communication style and their paths of communication and how they relate to one another. And you know what? After I keep saying it all the time, once you pierce the white noise, right, you get down to the basics, and we're all human. We're going to call a friend, call a family member. We're going to see if they've had any experience. They're going to want to trust. Then they go to the Google reviews and make a decision. It still is about the relational part of it. I think what Greg's talking about today is a huge part of being there for them.
Right. Okay. That's why they'll trust you.
I got to sort of move forward because I know how much time we don't have to do this, but I do want to make sure that we talk to the folks out there about, okay, you got me, Greg. Okay, so now how do I go about doing this, right? So I need you to understand, guys and ladies, that the first thing we have to do is to take apart what are the processes that are in place here. One of the things that, and I will say, I guess we had a little bit of advantage because at the time when I developed this thing, we only, and we still only work on certain models of vehicles. We work on Honda, Toyota, Subaru, and of course the ancillary vehicles that do that. So, and back in the day, Honda had a very elaborate maintenance schedule. And so they allowed us to say, okay, at this time you need 3,000 miles or 3,750 miles or 3 months, you need blah, blah, blah. And so we made up these services in our software. And we called them canned jobs back then. I think they still call them that. And I actually had my son, who was in high school at the time, come in over a summer, and he did several thousand of these things. Of course, he created the whole, not only what we were doing, but the individual car down to the specific vehicle. And so it was really great. So we had parts kits and services attached. So, but you don't have to be that focused on it, but create what it is you're going to do and then when you're going to do it. And then we need to develop that maintenance pattern. And then we want to communicate that pattern to the client. So whether it be sheets or something that says we're going to need to see the car every Toyotas, for example, 6 months or 5,000 miles maximum. At least that's what most of them are like. 6 months or 5,000 miles maximum, which means right now we're only seeing them twice a year, primarily if you're living in a metropolitan area like we do. So we see them twice a year. So it's really important to get them in on time, right? Because when the light finally comes on their car, the maintenance minder I'm talking about, that was a big problem when back in, I guess it started in 2010, somewhere around there. I know Honda came out with this thing. They put it on the Odyssey, and it was like, oh my God, the maintenance minder thing is a huge problem because it throws all of our clients right off that schedule. Now you have to wait for the car to tell you what it needs. Really? Because you're going to wait for the car, because the car has got, it's got guys in coats that are, white coats down under the hood there, and they're checking stuff all the time. Yeah, this is plenty of oil in there. Sure, no problem. Wrong. You know as well as I do that's the best way to destroy an engine is to wait until that thing says 15% and then then try to figure out how you're going to put an oil change into your pattern, into your daily schedule. So then it's another freaking month beyond that, right? Before you can actually get the oil changed, and pretty soon the thing's burning oil. Seen it? Been there? Seen even Honda created a TSB about this, saying, tell your customers it's okay if it burns oil between oil changes. What kind of crap is that? Seriously. Okay.
Greg's not passionate about this. Okay, I'm sorry, he's not that animated.
Here.
Wow.
So you wait a minute, back up. Develop the maintenance pattern. You communicate the pattern to the client. Okay, and then you create a series of a process for your front office people, or you, or if you're the guy, or your whoever is checking that client out at the end of the day. And I hope you are doing that because you need to resell that job at the end. And go back over what you did that day, and then say, okay, so the next time the car is going to be, next servicing that this car is going to need is just going to be an oil service. It's going to be due 6 months from now or whatever, 3 months from now. And we're going to pencil in a date for that. And that's something you could come and wait with the car if you wanted. It takes about 20 minutes. Come and have a cup of coffee with us.
Now what did you just talk about, Greg? It's important for everybody to step back and think about it for a minute, because it's wonderful to see your passion, because
yes.
two things just got explained. One, you took the car out of the equation of guiding or leading the customer, and you've now switched it to where we are the advocate for the customer and we're being proactive for them. It's huge with regards to the relationship part of it, and that's
It's
what
giant.
drives me for our clients. So there you go. It's huge.
It's giant, because basically we are in, listen to me guys, I want you to focus on this because I'm pointing my fingers now. We are in the relationship business. We are not in the car repair business. Do you get that? Repeat after me. Come on, I can't hear you. We are in the relationship business. Dang Skippy. Okay, so understand that whatever you can do to improve that relationship with that client has nothing to do with their car. They're going to have multiple cars over the time that you know them, okay? And they're going to be, I have clients that have been around over 30, 35 years. I've been in business 41 years now. I've been in unfortunately, many funerals over the years because these are part of our family. But I have clients that have been around for years and years and years, just like you would probably be with your dentist if you stay. The only reason people leave dentists if they screw something up or if they move to another city, right? So in any case, what we got to do is to work with a pattern, and we create a pattern for them. It's like teaching them a dance. Okay, so you teach them the steps of the dance, and then you step back and let them do the dance. And you know, there've been times that our clients would go, "Hey, wait a minute!" At the checkout, they go, "You didn't set up my next appointment."
Mm-hmm. I've witnessed that. I have witnessed that. Preach. Amen. Right. Can I get an amen? He has pulled that off.
So you know it's working. When your customers are now trained to the point where they're going, "Hey, wait a minute! I got to set up my next appointment. Wait, whip out my phone and let's set this thing up." Well, okay. So wait a minute. Let me back up. At the beginning of this thing, you're probably going to get some pushback, but you have to sort of back up a little bit and create some sort of small incentive program for that. I know when we first started it, because we were doing back then in those days, it was oil change services, minor services, intermediate services, and major services. Primarily were the four big services that we were doing. So we were doing like $10 off an oil change, $20 off a minor service, $30 off an intermediate service, and $40 off a major service. And of course, that $40 off that major service wasn't going to apply to the ticket until they came in, right? So, I mean, you're not actually spending the money now. So in any case, what we found over time was that they don't care how much it is. They don't. We're doing $5 now. Sure. We've been doing $5 for pre-scheduling credits for a long time, and no drop off. Nobody even says anything about it. It's like, hey, I'm getting a pre-scheduling credit. Great, you know. So create a program, and when they say, "Nah, I don't want to do that," look, you just say, "Look, $40 is $40. All I'm doing is penciling it in. It's worth it." And they go, "Okay."
So, and Greg, I think that's a really, really great commentary as well. And I think you're hitting on something that we look at all the time, which is who's the customer in the channel? Who's the independent repair shop customer at their core? You know, and you know, sadly, we can define them to the extent that we know what they listen to on the radio and what they watch on TV. And we look at them at a hard pattern perspective. They're different than those that would go to a quick lube, let's just say. And they were different than those that go to a general repair shop. But and their behaviors are different of why they're going to these places as well. And I think that's a really, really, really great insight, because the pushback that they're all price shopping when they're going into the general repair shop channel and the independent is not. I don't think that's true at all.
It's not.
And we know it's not true. We know it's not true.
It's not. And again, it's in our best interest to have fewer clients that have higher ticket averages, right? Right. Right.
Well, true. And I'll chime in and say, to the beginning rollout of this, right, we're actually having some fun. So as you described the situation with the customers about penciling that in, right, and the ones that probably, well, no, and it's more of a Jerry Maguire moment. It's help us help you. That's really what it is, right?
Show me the money. Well,
that's on the back end, but
right. It's interesting you say that, because one of the things that I had written down as a talking point that I want to mention, and you guys and Carm, you talked about millennials, and Bill, you did too as well. Millennials are definitely in the what's in it for me generation, right? So
be careful.
Okay. Well, I wanted to say the millennials, but I mean, any client, in order to get them to do something like this, they have to understand what's in it for them. Okay, and that's where you come up with this incentive program of some sort, because, like I said, $40 is $40. Why? Who would want to throw away $40? right?
I'd change that comment to be a little bit more dynamic, Greg. We have this comment all the time about millennials, and the thing that I've noticed for a while, and I think it's changing, is that we've boxed millennials into something of when they were first defined. But the reality is millennials are now up to the age of 41. And I'd rather talk about it in terms of life stages. They're out of college. They got their first apartment. They got married. They got their first car. They have kids, all in that span of 40 years. And so when we generationally define them, maybe there's some patterns there. I think the patterns are more, where do they go to get their information, not a personality trait in its entirety, right? And I think that generational, that life stage is really where we should be looking in when we classify our customers, right?
Yeah, and it's almost higher than that. It's almost the technology age, not necessarily generation.
Sure.
Because my 81-year-old mother is on Facebook and texts me like it's like she's never called me hardly, as much as she texts me. So, everybody's getting used to the convenience and the ease of it, and so there we are.
Okay, so let's make sure,
Greg, let me hold you up for 1 minute, please, and let me again give high fives to these great sponsors that bring you the show. Shopware knows that now more than ever, you're focused on bringing cars through your bays safely and efficiently. Shopware's shop management system, they offer a completely contactless workflow, and your customers can review, approve, and even pay for the repairs right from their smartphone. Request a demo at getshopware.com. And when someone searches for a shop, who are they finding? Your competitors? Well, it should be you. The good people over at Shop Marketing Pros know how to drive website traffic and make Google work for you on the web at shopmarketingpros.com. I'm going to say that this was on fire so far. Thank you so much. Greg, I'm gonna take some blame for where Greg is positioned in his mindset right now, because we spoke an hour before this, and we were going at it. I mean, we were both brimstoning each other on soapboxes, and it just carried over to the show. I should do this with every guest in the future. So thank you for your passion. There's been a lot of great comments in social media. One of the thoughts that I had, and let me just toss this out and you guys can go with it wherever you want. Can you imagine that the phone rings and your service advisor needs to spend 10 minutes to schedule an appointment and discuss with the client? But if that appointment was done, think of the number of times. Say you have a dozen on your appointment calendar. That's a dozen times 10, 120 minutes of time you don't have to invest.
Exactly.
Remember, Craig, when you came to our shop, matter of fact, one of the things that you remarked on was how quiet it was in the front office.
Yep.
Because the phone isn't ringing, and people freak out about the fact that the phone isn't ringing, but that's okay because we've got all the cards are coming in and we're making outgoing phone calls to the clients, right?
You know what I called it? I called it proactive internal and external communication. It was unbelievable to hear the lack of incoming calls for both sides of it, whether it's a return call to the advisor, whether it's calling for a set-up appointment. I mean, the phone rang. I mean, it worked. Don't get me wrong, but it was zen in there. And I took some of already what I had learned at that point and changed that around, right? But he is 100% correct. So imagine the freed up time that you get for the advisors to even build further on the relationship with the client and the customer. It's amazing what happens when that relationship develops. This goes to trust, right?
Okay. So the main focus here, without getting too zen, is to move from a reactive situation or a reactive shop focus to an acting upon or an action focus. So we are taking control of the process and moving it forward in a pattern that we are directing primarily. Of course, the client's always in charge of what we're doing on their car, but we're the ones that are saying, hey, this is the time. Just like your dentist says, hey, this is the time we need to get x-rays. Okay, we're going to get x-rays. I mean, are you going to say, no, I don't want to do x-rays now? So it's like,
he's right. 100% correct.
So I mean, just to be efficient about it, if you can make your appointment, I mean, literally, and I timed this many times, and Craig knows this, it takes 10 minutes for when the phone rings for a service advisor to stop what they're doing, making that estimate or preparing that sale, and get on the phone with that person. Hi, Miss Jones, blah, 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 blah. And they go through and pick up their stuff and figure out 10 minutes per call. Okay. So the amount of time that you're wasting doing that when you could be doing this ahead of time in a different format is priceless.
And on an average smaller shop at 12 average customers that you want a day, that's 120 minutes and 2 hours throughout the day that somebody's getting the phone. Think
Ding,
about
ding,
that.
ding. That's right.
Hey guys, Greg Buckley made a comment here. Even though you pencil in the next appointment, do you still rely on your CRM process to follow up with that?
Yes, and make sure whether you have an automated system in your software or whether you do it yourself, it must be done.
Yes.
It must be done. You cannot not call these people and remind them, okay? Or else you'll blow the entire thing.
Yeah. Don't pencil in. I'm robbing something, Greg. Don't pencil in the process. You got to make it law, and then that's when the consistency happens.
Right.
Yeah.
Consistency.
And you know, you go back to the dentist, and guys, this whole healthcare thing is so similar. We travel down the same laneways, if you will, in think, you know, diagnostic versus testing and all this stuff. My phone just chimes up and it reminds me a week later, and they allow me to text back and says, yes, I'm confirming. And then 2 days before I get the same text to be sure. I mean, you know how crazy our worlds and our lives are.
Yep.
Frankly, I love the fact that I can get pre-scheduled appointments for hair and teeth.
Well, not only that, well, I mean, we have 7 loaner cars, okay, in our shop. That's another process that we had created years ago, back in 1984. But we only have so many of these things. And if they want one of those loaner cars or need one of those loaner cars, and who doesn't in day of world of COVID, we need to make sure that they get their spot for that. So there's another way of pushing that forward. But also, and because we are doing taking the loaner car to them, or maybe we're just taking a follow car to them and dropping off our follow car and then picking up their car, bringing it to the shop, doing the servicing. I mean, we're doing all of that now because of COVID. So in order to get that, it takes additional time to have a staff member go and get the car and all that and bring it back and do the whole desalinization of it at the end. So it's impressive. When you think about it, if you guys start thinking about this process, removing it, it goes out further and further and further to how we're dealing with our clients in a much larger and global scale. So we're just touching the surface here. I'm just saying you got to get going on it.
Yes.
It works on any shop. It works. I don't care what your situation is. I heard people say, well, I get 10,000 cars a day going past my shop. So you have 10,000.
Yep.
How much time does it take to deal with, you know, a line of people at the door? Are you doing proper work? Are you doing great services? Inspections? Are you spending enough time with them? Probably not.
Well, I think we could go on for 2 hours, Greg, but I'm going to jump in here. I pulled out a very interesting piece of information from a survey, Bill. This says, it says one virtual transaction that engenders a high level of interest globally is virtual servicing. And Greg, you just defined it, where a vehicle is picked up from the home or office when it needs service. Consumers in the U.S. say 46%, the Republic of Korea 70%, Japan 67%, are largely in favor of the added convenience provided it comes free of charge.
Yeah.
So I think you're at a point where if we were going to re-strategize our whole businesses, you know, because of what we've learned from COVID, because it's just smart to do business this way, the whole pickup, and again, I never thought of it called virtual servicing, but I like that term. So look at, I want to go around the room and get any final. I'm going to have to put you at the end, Greg, because of, oh my God, you know, but Bill Thompson from IMR, president of IMR, Automotive Service Research, thank you for the data to continue to prove. Let me put that slide up one more time if I can, right? To continue to prove that 59.7% of consumers will accept an appointment in the future. What, like Greg said earlier, what more do you need, right? What more do you need?
Yeah, and there's I'll do a little commentary on that for a moment, which is simply that that's 26,000 households. It's not like it's a handful of people sitting around a keg drinking beer. It's a lot of people, and it's week over week. So that's good. And if I may, only because this is slightly self-serving, somebody in the comments asked me what that was behind me.
Oh, the picture. Yeah.
It's a gentleman out of Chicago. He's a photographer named Freddie Fabris, Fabris. He took a bunch of Renaissance paintings and used automotive technicians in replace of the actual. So that's a Rembrandt, and those are actual Chicago-based technicians. You can find them; they're actually here. Cool. So look him up. He's really awesome, and he's done a whole series of technician-based art.
I'm going to put it in the comments. Fred, what? Fred
Fabris, Fabris.
Now that was a nugget right there.
Yeah,
that's a great.
You know how hard it is to find automotive art? It's really kind of.
Well, that's positive. I mean, most of it is, it's we got our best guys on your car. See,
exactly.
You're sitting on the car.
Thank you so much, Bill. Craig, thanks for being here with all you got going on and your contributions. Any final words?
Just again, focus on the relational part of what our responsibility to help the client is about. I can't say enough about how impactful what Greg has brought to just us as colleagues as a relationship, but he's just passionate about this topic, as you can see. And I think that it's great to remember that this is all about being proactive. And that's the most important thing. If we can control the car, we don't get the car controlling us, right?
So if I love my customer, I need to do this, right, Greg?
Absolutely.
Who doesn't love your customer? Because if you don't love them, I'm gonna. I mean, basic bottom line, right?
Do you have any final words?
Sure. I've got lots of words, you know me. But I think what I want to say to you guys primarily is the end result of this is that we will have trained our clients. I know it sounds kind of weird, like it's not like dog training, but we are trained our clients that they can trust us, that we're their guy or we're their shop. We've got our stuff together. That guy over there with the fly-by-night shop or a mobile, whatever, he doesn't have his stuff together. He's looking at what I can get today, right? And we got our stuff together. We know that they don't have to do this work today. We're going to do it next time the car comes in, because you know what? We know what's going to need. We know how long it's going to take. We're going to remind you when it needs it. We're going to come pick up your car. We're going to do all of these steps. Okay. So, it's interesting because I had a service advisor came aboard with me at one point and came to me like after 2 weeks and said to me, and she was from New York. Okay. So she says to me, your clients are like butter, which means I can sell anything to them, anything. You don't have to work at it. And of course, this person came from a dealership, and of course, it's a different world than a dealership world. But our clients do what we ask them to do, and we don't overstep that boundary. But this is part of it. This is only a piece of this now, guys. Pay attention to what's going on in the big 360 degrees. Does that make sense, Carm?
Yeah, it does. Very good. What a great show. Thank you guys so much. Wow. I'm speechless. I don't know about you, Bill, but I think Greg and Craig and you knocked it out of the park.
I'm loving Bill's data because he brought up with that. I know it was like what 60%. What is it? What 59% say yes, do it. What? How stupid do you have to be to not pay attention to that?
We love Bill's data. We love his data.
Yeah, Bill, we love your data.
Well, thank you.
All right, guys. Thanks. Have a great weekend.
All right. Thank you, Carm.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Carm.
You too. Bye, guys.